The first thing I do when I get a project to mix is to get the tracks organized into my standard layout. Having a standardized layout for your project saves time when mixing, as you'll always know where the tracks are without having to scroll up and down hunting for a particular track in a project. This goes back to the days of analog consoles and 24-track tape machines. Having a standard track layout made it a lot easier to find what you wanted to adjust when you were working on large format consoles that often had over 60 channels. For this series of mixing videos, we'll be working with the song Quiet Scream that I mixed for Greg Adams and East Bay Soul. I picked this song for the how-to video series because it has a bit of everything in it and has the largest number of tracks. Let's take a look at my standard layout. I like to arrange my tracks in a roughly low to high order, with the lead vocals or instruments last. For me, that means bass tracks first, then drums, which also have their own standard track layout, then rhythm instruments, lead instruments, followed by background vocals, harmonies, and the lead vocal or instrument. Any effects channels that I create as I'm working on the mix will get put at the bottom of the project in their own folder. Once I have all those tracks lined up the way I want, I then go back and add my group channels and start routing tracks to those groups. For the bass in this project, I was given only a direct signal, so I created my own bass amp track from an amp simulation plugin. Those two tracks are then assigned to my bass master group. For drums, the group tracks go 2 levels deep. The kick drum had 2 microphones, so I set up a kick group to send those 2 channels to. Same with the snare drum, which also had 2 microphones. However, for one section of the song, the drummer played side stick on the snare, so I took just the top microphone for that section, put it on its own track so I could process it slightly different, and then all 3 of those tracks are sent to the snare group. Out of the 3 toms the drummer had, he only hit 1 tom in this entire song, so to keep it clean, I deleted the other 2 tom tracks. But since I was using the same layout for all 10 songs of this project, I still routed the 1 tom to the tom group channel. Since these files came from a Pro Tools session where the left and right overheads and left and right room microphones were each on their own mono audio track, I created an overhead group and a room group and routed those tracks, panned appropriately, to those groups so I could then process them in stereo. For this project, I also put the hat and ride into a group, with the hat panned a bit left and the ride panned a bit right, so I could use this group channel to augment the overheads as needed to bring out the hat or ride. After these subgroups were set up, they were all routed to my master drum bus group, so I could do a bit of processing to the overall drum sound, as well as have one master channel for automation of the overall drum levels. To keep things tidy, after setting up my drum groups, I put all the individual drum audio tracks into a folder that I can collapse to get back some screen space. After the drums, there are 3 rhythm instrument tracks that didn't get grouped with anything and are routed directly to the main mix bus. I did similar subgrouping with the horns and the strings and also put the respective tracks into folders so I could keep a cleaner layout. The horns are recorded with both close microphones and room microphones, so I set up a group channel for the close mics and another for the room mics, making it easy to adjust the blend between the 2. Those 2 groups are then routed to the horns master group. There was then a quadruple flute part, which was routed to a group channel, and a muted trumpet solo, which had a close mic and room mics, which I also routed to a group channel. The strings were triple tracked and had 3 microphone setups: close microphones, wide microphones, and a Decca tree. Again, I set up group channels for each of these microphone setups so I could control the blend between them, and then routed them all to a strings master group. Finally, we have the vocal, which is just a single audio track, so no group channel was needed. Below the vocal are the 4 effects channels I set up for this mix. At the very bottom is a MIDI track for a couple of very small electric piano overdubs that Greg added at the last minute while we were mixing. The corresponding VST instrument track is below that. And that's my layout for the mix of Quiet Scream. In the next videos, I'll break down what I did during the mix for each instrument and group.